right, so I'll start. All right, go back over so that everybody can see it. If you haven't figured it out yet, Thursdays and Fridays is when we're going to do these live. They take about a half hour. Do go back and watch the videos if you don't get to be here. I put them in the WhatsApp for a reason. Everything does build on itself. We're going to go back to last Friday, and we're going to go through what we were actually going to go through last Friday, but we had a better organic meeting because it became a discussion. I don't remember. You were here, weren't you, last Friday?
I had a customer.
You had a customer, okay. So watch them 1.5 or 1.75 speed, 2. I'm a little bit muck-mouthed, so if you watch it on 2x, you might not get it all. But, all right. Success map, we all remember this, right? Hopefully you remember it by now, but 1 is
Where you are.
where you are. Where are you right now? 2 is
Where you want to be.
where do you want to go? 3 is
Why.
why do you want to get there, tying emotion to it, and we went through why emotions are so important in this last time. And then 4 is how rearrange to who, because if you model somebody who's been successful at what you're trying to do, you're going to get there faster, right? So today, we're going to follow up on last week. We talked about rule number 2 last Thursday. So a week ago from today, we talked about rule number 2 in 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson. And that rule number 2, to refresh your memory, is treat yourself like you're somebody you are responsible for helping. Right? And what we said in that time was become your own best coach. And then the next day we were going to talk about what that means to coach yourself. And then we got distracted by a very important conversation that came up. We talked about being present, and we're going to go back through this. Not the same thing. Now we're going to do what we were originally going to do. You're going to ask you on a scale of 0 to 100, how present are you with where you are on a daily basis? How much of yourself are you giving to every moment? And how much time are you wasting? So let me start with your wasted time. So let's say that you sleep for 8 hours. Most of us probably sleep for less than that, but let's say you sleep for 8 hours. So 24 hours in a day, that leaves you how many hours left?
16.
So 16 hours in a day. That's how much time you have to dedicate to yourself. Now, those 8 hours or 6 hours, whatever it is you're sleeping, is important time. It's restorative time, right? It's rest. And we need rest. Otherwise, have you ever gone 24 hours without sleeping? No, you haven't?
Oh, close.
Yeah. How does it feel at the end of that?
Sucks.
Yeah. You're just dying to get to bed, right? Your eyelids get heavy. You're like, God, I'm ready for bed, right? So those 8 hours, we won't count them, but they are important. You do need to sleep. For 16 hours, on a scale of 0 to 100, but let's start with this. How much time do you think you waste in 16 hours?
Probably half of that.
Half.
You
said
only waste
most.
8 hours?
Huh?
You only waste 8 hours?
Yeah.
I waste way more than 8 hours.
How much do you waste?
I don't know. I know that my actual work time is about 3 hours.
So you think you waste, 13 hours?
Well, according to my Fit Watch, I only sleep 4 hours a night, so.
So you're wasting 17 hours of your life every day.
Pretty much.
Wow. Now, when you say you're wasting that time, because 3 hours is your work time, out of curiosity, what are the things that are draining your time, that are wasting your time?
I watch TV at home. That wastes a lot of time. I wait for people to come up after I do all my actual work. I'm sitting outside, waiting for someone to show up. I'm not part of the gossip club. I don't sit around and talk to people out there. I'm waiting for somebody to come in and give me some money.
Okay.
So
So if you're like, at home it's TV time, and here waiting for something to happen, waiting for Godot.
right. I work out every day and I run every day too. So I don't know that that's wasted time.
No, I wouldn't put that in wasted time. I would put that in, you're focused on whatever you're doing at that time, right? So do you think it's still 13 hours? If you include that stuff as focus time?
If I include that stuff, we're looking at about an hour and a half a day.
So, and you're only sleeping 4. So you probably are wasting 13 hours a day.
I probably am.
Interesting. What about you? How much time do you think you waste?
Oh, it depends how you look at it. I'm going to say 10 minutes every hour.
You're wasting 10 minutes every hour. So, where's that? 10,
I was gonna do the math. I figured you'd skip me.
about 2.5 hours, 2.5 plus, right? Because 150 would be 2.5 hours. So that's actually pretty good. If you're being honest. If you think you're only wasting 10 minutes every hour. Here you think you're wasting 10 minutes every hour.
At home,
What
I
about
mean,
you?
I stay busy from the time I get up until the time I go to bed.
Mm. So home, stay busy. All right, 7. All right, so what I want you to ask yourself, and the reason I walked you down, and thank you for participating, the reason I asked you to walk through that with me is just to start getting, and I want everybody to do it, so if you're watching the video, take time, answer the same types of questions that I just went through, right? Ask yourself, how much time do you think you're actually wasting, not just here, but at home? Now, the reason I ask you to ask yourself those questions is because I want you to take real stock of where you are right now for yourself and determine, okay, if it were possible for me to spend more time on the right tasks, what would that look like? If it were possible for me to spend more time on the right tasks, what would that look like? And a more important question I want you to ask yourself is, if I'm not wasting a ton of time, so I appreciate your honesty because you're claiming I'm where I am because I wasted a lot of time, and I continue to. So if you say to yourself, I waste 10 minutes every day, 10 minutes an hour every hour, I'm only wasting 10 minutes. I want you to ask yourself why you're not where you want to be already, right? And everybody, if you claim, and again, this is your own truth. I'm not going to quiz you on it. I might ask you questions like this. But if you think you waste a little bit of time and you're not really wasting time, I want you to ask yourself why you're not where you want to be. Because true or false, we all have the same amount of time.
True.
You've got people like us, and you got people like Elon Musk. The guy can send rockets to the moon. The guy invented PayPal, along with others. Tesla, SpaceX, owns Twitter now. Right? Same amount of time as the rest of us, and what he has done with it is vastly, immensely greater. True or false? True, right? So we have the same amount of time as Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, I mean, you name it, Warren Buffett, right? All the same amount of time, but where we are is a function of how we spend it, right? So actually take yourself through those questions and then figure out, okay, how much time am I really wasting? And the only way you know that, how do you know how much time you're wasting?
I don't really, but I feel it.
You feel it.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
Cause I go on my phone and doom scroll on TikTok, and it's like, damn, I just wasted fucking an hour and a half. Sorry, I just wasted an hour and a half.
I've sworn a few times on here too. Yeah,
It's like-
wow, I wasted an hour and a half
Yeah,
doom
it's-
scrolling.
Yeah, it's like, my day's almost gone. What am I gonna do?
Yeah.
Doom scroll some more.
Send some funny ones to some
Yeah,
friends. Right? Guilty. What about you? How do you know how much time you're wasting?
I don't. Well,
don't?
because I'm sitting idle.
Okay, and so you're guessing, and you're saying probably 10 minutes a day. Fair.
Well, I know because I look at my clock, my watch, before I start my tasks in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Then look when I get done with my tasks in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing with exercise. It's the same with everything. I used to run a company, so I used to be busy 14 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
And I took stock in every second that I did. And so that's how I know, because I actually look at it.
It was actually measured. So I offered you an opportunity to time block your day. And if you want to, you go back, you can watch the time blocking video, you can see what that's really about is about setting up the time so that you're focused on the most important tasks. Having your time planned out, knowing what your most important day looks like, right? The most successful day, if you had the perfect day, remember that one? If you had the perfect day, what would that look like? Being able to measure it. So when I ask you a random question, like on a scale of 0 to 100, how focused do you think you are? How much time do you think you're wasting? When I ask you how much time you think you're wasting, there's two questions there. What does it mean to waste time? What does it mean to not waste time? What does it mean to not waste your time?
Accomplishing goal.
Being productive.
Moving towards goal. Productive. What else?
Accomplishing what your task for the day.
So you have to have an objective to start with.
Yeah.
You got to be moving towards, right, this is success. The progressive realization of a worthy ideal. So the only time you're not wasting time is if you're moving towards a goal. Right? So when you're wasting time, what are you doing?
You have no goals.
There's no goal. There's no objective in mind. If you were your own coach, how much time would you tell yourself you should be spending not pursuing your goals? Now, before you answer that, I want you to remember that sometimes sitting and watching a show with the spouse, I do it, might fall in line with your goals, even though I don't love television. But my wife and I connect by watching Below Deck, right? It's one of our favorite shows to watch. There's a certain amount of time that we will watch that. Her other, like if she's watching Real Housewives, watch that when I'm not around. You know what I mean? I'm at work a lot, right? I don't need to watch that one, but I watch Below Deck. So sometimes, the reason I say that is sometimes what feels like it's wasting time watching television might fall in line with a goal, if it's something like that, right?
Well, I do watch with, normally, because a friend of mine lives in another state, and we will watch the same thing at the same time.
Yeah, and it's kind of a social connection, right? So now I'm not trying to create an excuse for you if TV is a way that you waste your time, but there is a way where something that feels like it's wasting time isn't exactly wasting time. But this is what matters. So if you're your coach, how much time would you tell yourself? And you don't have to answer this out loud, but ask yourself, if you were your coach, how much time would you tell yourself to waste to allow yourself to not be pursuing a goal? Ask yourself that question. Answer yourself that question. Because if you're your coach, there are things that you value, right? And so I'm going to get rid of some of these because that's where we're going to go. So that's the whole idea of becoming your own coach, is asking yourself, what time would you waste and what time would you be on schedule? So let me get rid of this for a minute. And I'm going to ask you, do you have a value system written out? Have you written out a structure of what's important to you? I'm going to encourage you. Now, I'm just going to give you an example. You don't have to use this. Also, check out our company website. This is mine, so you can't use that one. No, I'm just kidding. But this is mine. I sat down one day and I said, what's the most important thing to me? What am I committed to? Right, and this is just for me. I've shared this with another group before where I was in a leadership role. Not for you to adopt mine, but this means something to me. I sat down and I said, I'm committed to creating a wealthy life for those I serve, for my teammates, my loved ones, and myself. And I went down, a wealthy life, right? You can see that. And each letter stands for something, right? And I'll run through them real quick for those that can't see the paper. A is accountability, W is wisdom, E is execution, A is advocacy, L is listening, T is teamwork, H is humility, the Y in wealthy is yes. L is learning, I is intentionality, F is faithful, and E is a Latin phrase, esse quam videre, which means to be rather than to seem. And next to those are a little sentence, a written reminder of what I mean. And that's for me, right? I read this to remind myself what the value system is that I'm trying to live up to. Because as a coach, I have to regard whether or not I'm wasting my time when I'm talking to myself. And how I value that, how I measure that, because you said you have to have a way of measuring it, is I have to have a ruler. And that's what my values are. We have a core value written out. A core value. Shoot. What are the Hudson core values? Core value number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4. They're written out. Every company has them. So if you are your own CEO, your own CFO, your own CTO, your CMO, right? You are your own chief, running your own business, your life, and you're your coach. To get the highest productivity out and to have the most fulfillment, you have to have values written out. Now, God, here it is again with writing things down. This is terrible, right? You actually have to do it. Now, it doesn't have to be, mine's long, right? There's just 4. You might have only a handful of things, right? You might be able to put it all together. And if I made that the goal and say, okay, I can have 5 or less, right? That's actually a good goal to have. Within 5 words, 5 values, if you can list out what those values are, it's probably easier for you to remind yourself. Now, I'm a complicated guy with a complicated mind, so I'm good with the 17. No, it's not 17, it's whatever, 12, right? I'm good with that. But you figure out, what are your values? What are the things that are most important to you? So that when you're measuring whether or not you're on task, you know why. You don't have to pull it out and say, oh, is this a thing that wastes my time? But you'll know what you value. And I asked you to do a challenge last week. Do you remember the 24-hour challenge? Is anybody here for that? Oh,
I wasn't Steve, sorry.
no worries. The 24-hour challenge I ask everybody, and I'm going to reiterate it today because I guarantee you that most people didn't do it, or I guarantee you most people haven't accomplished it yet. The 24-hour challenge that we went over last week was to keep track of your negative thoughts. The 24-hour challenge is to try to go 24 hours without being negative. And keep a little notebook, a little piece of paper, something with you in your pocket so that when you catch yourself doing or saying something negative, thinking something negative, write it down. As in, what is that related to? What is it that is creating the negative thought within me? Now, it's yourself. There's the answer. But what is it? Is it job related? Is it relationship related? Right? Because you're going to challenge yourself on how to grow up, right? How to move towards something more positive in that domain. But you're only going to know it if you're tracking it. So the 24-hour challenge is so that as your coach, you know what you need to coach yourself on. Because you're going to become your own best coach. You're going to write out your value system. You're going to write, what are the values? I didn't give you this. You just came in. Sorry. This is an example of what I've written down for my own personal value system, just like we have a value system at Hudson Automotive Group. Right? Every company has them, right? You can go and look it up on their websites normally. But for me, these are the things that I decided, this is what I'm committed to. This is the life that I'm trying to create. This is what every employee, and there's one, every employee of my business, Hidako Inc., right? This is what I'm committed to. This is what I want to be. And so, since I know my values, I know whether or not I'm in alignment with who I want to be. So as I coach myself, I can say, well, you say that humility is important to you. You say that listening is important to you. Where are you in your commitment to that? Where are you in your alignment to that? Right? So that's the value of writing out your values. You can coach yourself. You can actually measure and say, okay, so these are the times where I'm off. And you can ask yourself, do I want to do something different with that? And then we're going to move on to what we've been asking the whole time. Questions. Thinking is nothing more than asking and answering questions. Would you agree with that or disagree with that? Thinking is nothing more than asking or answering questions. Asking and answering questions. Would you agree or disagree?
Or are you talking about externally or internally?
Both. But yes, internally. Let's start internal because that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about becoming your own best coach, coaching yourself to grow and become the best thing. We've all had other coaches, outside coaches in our lives, but I'm talking to you about becoming your own best coach. The person that calls you out to be your best, to execute the best on every play, to be present on the field of life, in the game, showing up ready to play, all your equipment on, dressed the part, giving it your all, right? Knowing what you value so that you know whether or not you're coaching yourself away from or towards the goal. Right? Because if you're just coaching, you don't have value set up, then you don't know which direction you're moving. Again, that's why you have to have the ideal set up, right? That's what it's all about. But now questions are the way that you coach yourself. They're also the way that you think. That's what I'm proposing here. Thinking is nothing more than asking and answering questions. Would you agree or disagree?
Yeah, I agree.
You agree?
Yeah.
What's a question you ask yourself, if you don't mind my asking?
How can I get more things done?
How can I get more things done? Let's go. Okay. How get more things
And where am I gonna find the time to do that?
done?
Could break it like that.
Where find time to? Okay. What are some other questions we ask ourselves?
I guess being in this business is how can I make more money?
How
I make more money.
make
If you make as much as you want, how can I make more for me, not necessarily compared to everybody else?
Yeah. Any other questions we ask yourself? Any other examples? Okay. So the reason I bring up questions here is because as a coach, you got to ask yourself questions. Right? If you read any business books on coaching and development, it's the secret to ask questions, to allow yourself to come up with the answers. Now, thinking is nothing more than asking and answering questions. The quality of your life, if what I say is true, and that your thoughts create your reality, that your thoughts manifest in physical reality, that you're in control of your own reality. You've created exactly what you have right now, and you're going to continue to create whatever you have in the future. And we're going to go down a path on how to change that if you don't like what that looks like already. How to improve that. What I'm asking you is, if thinking is nothing more than asking and answering questions, and your life is the quality of your thinking, a direct reflection of the quality of your thinking, then wouldn't it make sense that the quality of your life is dependent upon the quality of the questions you ask yourself? Here's what I mean. Let's take that one, because that's a great question to ask ourselves. How can I make more money? How many of us have asked ourselves this question? I have. You make $1 more.
That's a raise.
You make $1 more, that's the raise. You figured out how to make more money. But is that what you meant? Did you mean, how do I make more money and end up with $1 more?
I think maybe we should rephrase that to how can I be more efficient? Is that?
Or keep the same intention, right? If, let's say you were making currently $50,000 and your goal would be to get to $100,000, you have to be specific in your question. And you need to play with your mind. Not just, how do I make $100,000 in a year? But you need to say to yourself, if it were possible to increase my income to $100,000 every year, what would that look like? Ask yourself that question, and it's going to change the way you behave. Because now, if you make, you're at $50,000, you want to double your income. Now, if you make $50,100, you haven't answered the question. You haven't moved towards what you're actually after, right? Well, you've moved towards it, I should say. But how do I make more money? Somebody gives you $5 more than you have. Now you've made more money. So ask a better quality question. So you'll relate to this, and I think I've used this example before, and Tony Robbins uses it. Why am I so fat? Is that a question that people ask themselves? God, why am I so fat? Why am I such a pig? Right? Whereas if somebody really wants to lose weight, they can ask themselves, how can I lose weight? But that's just like this right here. How can I lose weight? It says pain. I'm not going to do that.
Yes. Good.
How can I become healthier so that my weight is a direct reflection of the lifestyle that I'm living, contributing to my overall mental and physical health? That kind of question changes the way you behave. Because you can...
Yeah, I think mood is a direct correlation of our activities. You know, mood can affect activity. You know, what we do throughout the day. Mood, how we think. Mood alters our thinking, like whether it's negative, positive. You know, if we're busy, then man, everyone's like, oh man, Ricky T, man, well, we're busy, man. We get you a customer. When it's slow, then the mood change brings out the negativity that we're talking about, Steve. Like it becomes the negativity thoughts.
So what you're saying is, and you didn't say this part, but what you're realizing is that the thinking leads to certain actions.
Correct.
Actions or movement. Actions lead to results, right?
Yeah.
And there's an ancillary component to that. Your actions influence your mood or your
Emotion.
Your emotions are an effect of your emotions.
That's good stuff there.
Your mood is your mood. Nobody made it to you. It's not. You're not a victim of your condition. This is what you've done. You've created this. So the action you take matters. The movement you take towards your goal matters. The question you ask yourself sets yourself up to think a certain way. This is the hard part about this, is that we ask ourselves, because we think, well, we ask ourselves a simple question like, how do I get more things done? What do you mean by that? You got to be more specific. That's what RPM is really about, is knowing what you're actually after, right? So when I ask myself a question, and you should do this, right? On a regular basis, when you're in an argument with somebody that you love, right? And I've used this example before, and because this changed my life. I didn't make this up. But let's say I'm arguing with my wife, right? She's the greatest thing in the world to me. And you might not think that about your wife at this moment. But at some point you did, and that's why you chose that partner. Right? But if I'm in an argument with my wife and I say to myself, what am I really after here? What is my real result that I'm after? What is the objective? Then I'm not my decision is, well, I want to resolve this, right? That's the real answer to that. What's my outcome here? Well, I want to resolve this. Well, the action I'm going to take based upon that thought process is going to be different from deciding to try to win an argument, because that is what I'm used to. That is stored behavior. That is, I didn't think of that. I just reacted with that, right? So the action you take as a result of better thinking will change the mood, not just of yourself, but the other person in the room with you. Because if you say, well, if resolution is my objective here, you're going to change the way you talk. You're going to change what you ask. You're going to come from a position of understanding in that specific example, and you might actually have a chance at resolving that issue, right? The result that comes out of that is going to be different than if you didn't ask yourself that question, right? And this is just an example. This applies to every other example, okay? Because the results, what do results do? They reinforce beliefs, right? And beliefs influence your thinking. So what I'm telling you to do, what I'm asking you to do is to start asking yourself real high quality questions. As you go through your goal setting, as you do your RPM, as you become your best coach, write down your value system. This is the homework that I'm asking you to complete. I know I'm asking you to write down a lot of things, but I'm asking you to take time. Maybe it's 3, maybe it's 5, maybe it's 1. Maybe you can sum it up with one thing. I don't know. You don't have to prove it to me. This is for yourself. Choose your values. Pick a few. Put them down on paper. Maybe you write them on the back of your goals. Maybe you post them next to your bed, right? Maybe you put them in a picture frame beside your bed. Maybe you write them on your mirror so you see them every day. I don't know how you do it. But what do you value most? Are your goals in alignment with those values? That's the homework. Do you know what you value? Do you have them written down? Write your values. Write your values. And then as you move forward, you're going to start changing your questions. You're going to ask yourself higher quality questions to influence your thinking so that the actions that you take, the motion that you take towards your goal is going to affect the mood. That's who you are. That's how you're being, right? We call them feelings. But it's going to affect your emotions because emotion comes from motion. The results that you get are going to be in alignment with your values if you do this because you're thinking in alignment with your values because you're asking yourself quality questions to say, hey, how committed to this are you really? And if you say to yourself, oh, I'm really committed to this, okay, what are you willing to sacrifice? What are you not willing to sacrifice to become the best person? The best version of yourself. What are you willing to allow you to be held back by? Is tired enough? I'm tired. I don't want my best life anymore. I want to be lazy right now. Is that enough for you to sacrifice your best, what you want most, because you're a little tired? Because you're angry? You allowed some sort of emotion to interfere with your objectives? Your coach wouldn't let you do that. Or you get pissed off because the ref makes a bad call. Someone in your life makes a bad decision, makes a bad call, says something that you didn't like. Are you now going to allow that emotion to derail you from what you're after? That's the question that a coach asks. Get your head back in the game, right? All right. I think I made my point. Write down your values. Figure out what it is you want. Right? This is all about moving towards that. All right, so I hope that helped everybody.
Yep. Good stuff.